Okay, so let's do another story review. I have done a novella before, and this is another one. A random chapter that I've picked out is chapter 3. Again, please comment the name of the novella along with its author down below in the comments. I would and give any recommendation of what to read next. I would love to. So let's read out chapter 3. After dressing, Stefan Arkadich sprayed himself with scent, adjusted the cuffs of his shirt, put cigarettes, wallet, matches, a watch with a double chain, and seals into his pockets. With an accustomed gesture, and having shaken out his handkerchief, feeling himself clean, fragrant, healthy, and physically cheerful despite his misfortune, went out, springing lightly at each step, to the dining room, where coffee was already waiting for him, and next to coffee, letters and papers from the office. He sat down and read the letters. One was very unpleasant, from a merchant who was buying a wood on his wife's estate. This wood had to be sold. But now, before his reconciliation with his wife, it was out of the question. The most unpleasant thing here was that it mixed financial interests into the impending matter of their reconciliation, and the thought that he might be guided by those interests, that he might seek a reconciliation with his wife in order to sell the wood, was offensive to him. Having finished the letters, Stefan Arkadich drew the office papers to him, quickly leafed through two files, made a few marks with a big pencil, pushed the files away, and started on his coffee. Over coffee, he unfolded the still damp morning newspaper and began to read it. Stefan Arkadich subscribed to and read a liberal newspaper. Not an extreme one, but one with the tendency to which the majority held. And though neither science nor art nor politics itself interested him, he firmly held the same views on all these subjects as the majority, and his newspaper did, and changed them only when the majority did. Or rather, he did not change them, but they themselves changed imperceptibly in him. Stefan Arkadich chose neither his tendency nor his views, but these tendencies and views came to him themselves, just as he did not choose the shape of a hat or a frock coat, but bought those that were in fashion. And for him, who lived in a certain circle and who required some mental activity, such as usually develops with maturity, having views was as unnecessary as having an hat. If there was a reason why he preferred the liberal tendency to a conservative one, also held to by many in his circle, it was not because he found the liberal tendency more sensible, but because it was more closely suited to his manner of life. The Liberal Party said that everything was bad in Russia, and indeed, Stefan Arkadich had many debts and decidedly too little money. The Liberal Party said that marriage was an obsolete institution and was in need of reform. And indeed, family life gave Stefan little pleasure and forced him to lie and pretend, which was so contrary to his nature. The Liberal Party said, or rather implied, that religion was just a bridle for the barbarous part of the population, and indeed he could not even stand through a short prayer service without aching feet, and could not grasp the point of all these fearsome and high flown words about the other world, when life in this one could be so merry. At the same time, Stefan Arkadich, who liked a merry joke, sometimes took pleasure in startling some simple soul by saying that if you want to pride yourself on your lineage, why stop at Rurik and renounce your first progenitor, the ape? And so the liberal tendency became a habit with Stefan, and he liked his newspaper as he liked a cigar after dinner, for the slight haze it produced in his head. He read the leading article, which explained that in our time it was quite needless to raise the cry that radicalism was threatening to swallow up all conservative elements, and that it was the government's duty to take measures to crush the hydra of revolution. That, on the contrary, in our opinion, the danger lies not in the imaginary hydra of revolution, but in a stubborn traditionalism that impedes progress, and so on. He also read yet another article, a financial one, in which mention was made of Bentham and Mill, and fine barbs were shot at the ministry. With his peculiar quickness of perception, he understood the meaning of each barb, by whom and against whom, and on what occasion it had been aimed. And this, as always, gave him a certain pleasure. But today this pleasure was poisoned by the recollection of Matriona Filminova's advice and of the unhappy situation at home. He also read about Count Beust, who was rumored to have gone to Wiesbaden, and about the end of grey hair, and about the sale of a light carriage and a young person's offer of her services. But this information did not, as formerly, give him a quite ironic pleasure. Having finished the newspaper, a second cup of coffee, and a claret with butter, he got up, brushed the crumbs from his waistcoat, and expanding his broad chest, smiled joyfully. Not because there was anything especially pleasant in his heart, the smile was evoked by good digestion. So, lot bit I read in totality. I mean, in continuously, without, because I was myself enjoying the literature, the writing, and the mood that it was setting upon. It's quite colloquial, simple, yet interesting. So, it's about the view of our protagonist on politics, on radicalism, on liberalism, and conservatism. What am I doing? I'm just getting tongue tied. Conservatism. So I don't know if I'm right, although in this word. So yeah, it's the view of our protagonist who, yeah, so I got a bit tongue tied. It's the view of our protagonist on liberalism and conservatism. Not only that, it's the view of our protagonist on life, how he views life, being in the position and the status he's in. We find it pretty simple. He goes on with his own tendencies, with his own thoughts, and agrees with whatever he feels like agreeing, that is, generally with the majority. And whenever the majority view changes, or whenever the views within him changes about any topic or about any subject or about life, then he too changes it, not being like influenced by any opinion or any extreme ideals like that. So here we find that our protagonist, Mr. Stefan Arkadich, is quite a simple person, uh, although he's from a high position of society, probably entrusted with many important matters, yet having a very simple view towards life, and it's about uh, it's about whatever was written. A Sorry, I got a bit tongue tied and jumbled up. So we're discussing the views of our protagonist on life, and he is having that, we can, if we read the previous chapters, we can see he was having a trouble with his wife due to some governess, French governess. He was having an affair with her, and his wife came to know about it, and she threw some tantrum and was about to leave the house or left the house, something like that. And he too came to know about it, and his usual bliss vanished. So it's a piece of his daily life, of his routine that we are reading here. Yet something is different this day, because he's uh, in the back of his mind there's the thought of his own personal problem, plus there's a financial difficulty also, because he has to sell some of his wife's estate, wood from his wife's estate, and because he's now not talking with his wife, he has to go and approach her and take her permission, and probably get some uh, get the taste of her tantrum again. So that also he won't like again to do. So that's what he's pondering and thinking about, and we're reading. Okay, so let's read on. Having finished the newspaper, a second cup of coffee, and a kalach with butter. So this is what he is eating. We are also getting the description of it. And yeah, I think I read this para before. Okay, let's read on. But this joyful smile at once vanished when it reminded him of everything, and he turned pensive. Two children's voices. Stefan Arkadich recognized the voices of Grisha, the youngest boy, and Tanya, the eldest girl, were heard outside the door. They were pulling something and tipped it over. I told you not to put passengers on the roof, the girl shouted in English. Now pick it up. All is confusion, thought Stefan. Now the children are running around on their own. And going to the door, he called them. They abandoned the box that stood for a train and came to their father. The girl, her father's favorite, ran in boldly, embraced him, and hung laughing on his neck, delighting, as always, in the familiar smell of scent coming from his side whiskers. Kissing him finally on the face, which was red from bending down and radiant with tenderness, the girl unclasped her hands and was going to run out again, but her father held her back. How's mamma? He asked, his hand stroking his daughter's smooth, tender neck. Good morning, he said, smiling to the boy who greeted him. He was aware that he loved the boy less, and always tried to be fair. But the boy felt it, and did not respond with a smile to the cold smile of his father. Mamma? Mamma's up, the girl replied. Stefan sighed. This means again she didn't sleep all night, he thought. And is she cheerful? The girl knew that there has been a quarrel between her father and mother, and that her mother could not be cheerful, and that her father ought to know it, and that he was shamming when he asked about it so lightly. And she blushed for him. He understood it at once and also blushed. So the daughter was old enough to understand that his father was only shamming. Uh, he knew that the mother was not cheerful. So still he was asking. So she didn't lie. She just blushed and put down her head, which was quite a statement on its own. And yeah, so let's read on. I don't know, she said. She told us not to study, but go to for a walk to grandma's with Miss Hull. Well, go then, my Tanchurokka. Ah, yes, wait, he said, still holding her back and stroking her tender little hand. He took a box of sweets from the mantelpiece, where he had put it yesterday, and gave her two, picking her favorites, a chocolate and a cream. For Grisha? The girl said, pointing to the chocolate. Yes, yes, and stroking her little shoulder once more, he kissed her on the nape of the neck and let her go. The carriage is ready, said Manfai, and there's a woman with a petition to see you, he added. Has she been there long? Asked Stephen. Half an hour or so. How often must I tell you to let me know at once? I had to give you time for your coffee at least, Matvey said in that friendly, rude tone at which it was impossible to be angry. Well, quickly send her in, said Oblonsky, wincing with vexation. The woman, Mrs. Kalinin, a staff captain's wife, was petitioning for something impossible and senseless. But Stephen, as was his custom, sat her down, heard her out attentively, without interrupting, and gave her a detailed advice on whom to address and how, and even wrote briskly and fluently in his large, sprawling, handsome, and clear handwriting a little note to the person who could be of help to her. Having dismissed the captain's wife, Stephen picked up his hat and paused, wondering whether he had forgotten anything. It turned out that he had forgotten nothing except what he had wanted to forget, his wife. Ah, yes, he hung his head, and his handsome face assumed a wistful expression. Shall I go or not? He said to himself, and in his inner voice told him that he should not go, and there could be nothing here but falseness, that to rectify, to repair their relations was impossible, because it was impossible to make her attractive and arousing of love again, or to make him an old man incapable of love. Nothing could come of it now but falseness and deceit, and falseness and deceit were contrary to his nature. But at some point I'll have to. It can't remain like this, he said, trying to pluck up his courage. He squared his shoulder, took out a cigarette, lit it up, took two puffs, threw it into the mother of pearl ashtray, walked with quick steps across the gloomy drawing room, and opened the other door to his wife's bedroom. So he was a bit crass with his wife because he didn't want to pretend about what he did because he liked what he did. Also, he loved his wife very much and didn't want to part with her. So he, at last, we see that Stefan, instead of going out to his usual business, decided to stay back in the house and talk to his wife and make things up. So he squandered up his courage and went to her room to finally make things normal between them. Okay, so we can then read the next chapter. Let me see how long the video is. It's not quite long, so probably we can do another chapter. But that will not be the next chapter. Maybe I'll do another random chapter from much later on in the novella. Do guess which novel it is and the name of the author in the comments. And yeah, and do comment if I have done the review right or not, or reading. It's not mostly reviewing, it's mostly reading. There's nothing to review for classics. So yeah, that's that. Ciao for now.